Greetings, everyone, from a very cold and a very wet Richards Rock Rambles. Here in Cape Town, winter is definitely here to stay, and been lots of flooding, and dams are just about full, and that's where we are as regards to the weather. As regards to the music, what I'm going to do for the next bunch of videos is we're going to check out artists who were part of famous bands, and while they were in the band or after the band broke up or finished, they had solo albums. So I've called this next bunch Going Solo. And the first gentleman we're going to have a look at was a frontman, also a songwriter to a degree, of a very famous band, for me probably one of the best rock bands of all time. Talking about Robert Plant, or Bob Plant if you like, from the UK, from Birmingham originally. And what an incredible singer. One of the best frontmen in rock as far as I'm concerned. And obviously when Zeppelin broke up after the death of John Bonham, he was an artist. He still had a lot to offer. He wanted to go in very different directions, as we'll see. And his solo career started, still going strong today. Recently been out on tour with Alison Krauss, released 2 albums with her. I'll get to that at a later stage. I don't have all of his solo albums, and we just make that quite clear from the beginning. He's made quite a few. So what I've decided to do is, for this video, for the first, it's going to be part 1, and then next time it'll be part 2. We're going to have a look at his first 4 albums in part 1. Like I mentioned, an incredible singer. Was in a band called the Band of Joy with John Bonham. They hooked up with Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones, and of course the rest is history. So sadly, once Bonham had passed away, that was it for Led Zeppelin. They were like a family, and there was no way they were going to carry on with any other drummer. And for me, that's the way they should have gone about it. There was talk about Cozy Powell and a couple of other guys coming in, but you can't replace John Bonham. How are you going to do that? The guy was a one-off. Incredible drummer. Anyway, let's get back into the solo album, shall we? And we're going to start off with an album which is, for me, probably the closest to Zeppelin. And probably because it was his first one after Zeppelin broke up. But you could hear he was trying different things here. So this came out, let me just see if I have a date here. This came out in 81 or 82. Let's just see if I can get a date here for you. 1982. So this was his first solo album. I have this on vinyl. There's no gatefold sleeve. It's just a normal cover. And there we go. Robert Plant, Pictures at 11. Now, please don't ask me what that cover is supposed to represent. I have no idea. Very strange. There he is with a cigarette in his hand on the picture, and there he is leaning against the wall with a fire hydrant. And there's the back, just the song titles and who plays on the album. And there's the fire hydrant going off. Who knows? Only Robert Plant knows. So who was on the album? On guitars, Robbie Blunt, really nice guitarist. In spots, he does sound a bit like Jimmy Page, but I suppose that was going to happen. On bass, Paul Martinez. On keyboards and synths, Jez Woodruff. That name might ring a bell, and I think he played on Sabbath's album as well. If I'm not mistaken, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, or was that Rick Wakeman? Anyway, he played on one of the Black Sabbath albums. Interesting on drums here, Phil Collins, of course, from Genesis, and Cozy Powell, who was one of the names that I mentioned, who was touted as being the next Zeppelin drummer. Very similar style to John Bonham, hard-hitting and in-your-face kind of drummer. Engineered by Pat Moran, mixed by Pat and Robert. I just want to see who produced this. Produced by Robert Plant. This is a cool album. The more you listen to this, and especially if you're a Zeppelin fan, some of the later ones you might not be that into. Side 1, Burning Down One Side. Excellent drumming on there. Cozy Powell only plays drums on 2 tracks on here. So that was Burning Down One Side. Then you get Moonlight and Samosa, and Pledge Pin, and Slow Dancer. Slow Dancer is the one with Cozy Powell, the last track on side 1, and you can hear it's Cozy Powell. You can hear it very similar to John Bonham, big loud smashes. Robbie Blunt does some great guitar work on it, and of course Robert Plant's voice is still excellent. Then you get side 2, Worse Than Detroit, Cat Lip, Like I've Never Been Gone, the second track featuring Cozy Powell, and Mystery Title. Not a bad album as far as, your sort of debut solo albums go. Excuse me, it's very cold here, so I have to have a sip. But if you're a completist and you want to start from the beginning as far as your solo albums go, you got to have this one, albeit with a slightly strange cover. Then we get to the second album, and this is also in the 80s. This is starting to have that 80s sound to it, especially the drums. And this one was called The Principle of Moments. There's another sort of minimalist cover with a Robert standing against a brick wall. Who knows what that's all about? And that's the back, just the song titles, no gatefold sleeve. So who's on here? Robbie Blunt, again on guitar, Jez Woodruff again on keyboards, Paul Martinez on bass, Phil Collins on drums, and Barrymore Barlow on drums. So he also plays a few tracks. Barrymore Barlow was, of course, the long-time drummer for Jethro Tull. Really cool. I've always loved his drumming. This had a few hits off it. The first album didn't really take off as far as hits go. This one had a few hits. In the Mood was a hit. Messing with a Mekon. This is in side 2, by the way. I mean, side 1. It starts off with Other Arms. Then In the Mood, Messing with a Mekon, and Reckless Love. And I just want to see who plays on what here. Yeah, so that one, Reckless Love, features Barrymore Barlow on drums. Yeah, and there's 2 backing vocalists, John David and Ray Martinez. Still produced by Robert Plant. So I see, recorded at Rockfield Studios. Great sound on this album, by the way, especially if you get the CD version, which I think has been remastered. So Reckless Love was with Barrymore Barlow. In the Mood was, this was around the time of MTV as well. And a lot of his tracks had sort of repeats on MTV. Then you get side 2, Through with a Two-Step. What is this? Horizontal Departure, Stranger Here, then Over There. And the big hit of this album, Big Log, which is kind of a mellow track with some very mellow vocals from Robert Plant. I remember the music video that came out to this was a very sort of atmospheric kind of thing. That was a fairly big hit for him from this album. So that was the second one, The Principle of Moments. Also, not a bad album. Takes a few listens to get into. I'm not a big fan of some of the 80s production, but that was the 80s. That was the time when everything was very tinny for me. There we go. Principle of Moments. Then we get to probably the most, if you're a diehard Zeppelin fan, this is probably going to be the hardest for you to get into. Very electronic, also of the time, Shaken and Stirred. Yeah, this one took me a long time to get into. Very electronic, lots of synths. Very strange album for Robert Plant. This one was totally left of center. He didn't do a 180 degree, he did a full 360 with this album. Hip to, this is side 1, Hip to Who, Color Lou, Color Low, very strange stuff. Too Loud, Trouble Your Money, and Pink and Black. Yeah, like I said, it's hard to describe this, apart from just being very electronic. The one hit that did come off this album is Little by Little, which is a cool sort of mellow track, some nice vocals from Robert. A Doo-Doo, that was the next track. Easily Led, and 6s and 7s was the last track. So I want to see if there's anything I can show you inside. There's just a couple of pictures of the guys. There's Robert Plant there with a much shorter hair than his Zeppelin days. I'm not too sure these other guys in the band are. So who was in here? Robbie Blunt still on guitars and synthesized guitars. You can hear that definitely on this album. Bass and guitar, Paul Martin is still there. Keyboards, Jez Woodruff. Drums, Richie Hayward. There we go. Another addition to his ever-changing drum stool. And additional vocals by Tony Halliday. She had some of the high-pitched backing vocals in some of these tracks, I think, on Little by Little as well. Produced by Robert Plant. Yeah, that's just the songs and who plays on there. So that was the third solo album. Shaken and Stirred, and he definitely shook things up and stirred things up with this one. Might take you a while to get into this one, but once it grabs you, it's not bad actually. I don't think he's ever produced a really bad album. Then we get another one that's kind of similar to Zeppelin in parts, and one of my favorites as well, Now and Zen. He's looking very moody on the cover there, old Bob. And that's the back. There's a picture of the band. And they had a particular look around this time. I don't know what look they were exactly going for, almost like a sort of an Eastern look. And some cool backing vocals on here as well from. I just want to see who plays on this album before we get into the tracks. Yeah, there's just the song, some of the song lyrics. Who plays on here? Guitars, Doug Boyle, different guitarist. Bass, Phil Scragg. Keyboards, Phil Johnson. Drums and percussion, Chris Blackwell. And his old buddies on here. Jimmy Page, he plays on a few tracks. Guitar solo on one of the tracks. Backing vocals, Marie Pierre. Kirsty McCall, excellent backing vocalist. And Tony Halliday, who was on the previous album. Yeah, so this album is a step up, definitely, from the previous one. This is more what you come to expect from Robert Plant as far as the rock side of things go. So when was this one released? 88, so we're getting towards the end of the 80s. Still has that 80s production sound to it. Some of the standout tracks on your Heaven Knows, excellent track. Some really nice guitar work and those backing vocals I spoke about. Dance on My Own, Tall Cool One. Yeah, that's another strange album. That could actually have fitted in on his previous one. The Way I Feel, so that's side one. Then you get Helen of Troy, Billy's Revenge, and the best track on here, which I think was released as a single, Ship of Fools, which also had a really nice video on YouTube if you want to check it out. Then you've got two last tracks, Why and White, Clean and Neat, which is also a very strange track. Could have also appeared on Shaken and Stirred. But yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites. It doesn't take you that long to get into. Some nice melody in the songs, different styles with his vocals. You know, Robert Plant, I think, was trying all different styles with his voice, which he couldn't do within the confines of Led Zeppelin. But this is definitely one to check out. Now and Then from Robert Plant, as I said, looking rather sort of pensive and moody there on the cover. Which is what he can do, I guess. So there we go. That's the first four. Next time around, we're going to have a look at the rest that I have in my collection. As I mentioned, I don't have all of the albums. There's a few that I'm missing, especially the more recent ones that I still need to get hold of and add to my collection. You know, being the completist, you want to have everything by a favorite artist of yours. That's it, guys. Have yourselves a great week. Look after yourselves. And if you're in Cape Town, stay warm. Yeah, drinking lots of coffee these days. And other substances that help with the sort of, you know, feeling warm. Here we go. I'll catch you again next time. Take it easy. Bye-bye.